Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Before I introduce our guest, here's a quote just for this episode. The tyrant dies and his rule is over. The martyr dies and his rule begins. Soren Kierkegaard. If you're listening to this episode, before I introduce our guest who's made the time to give tribute, something very important to the Culture Matters podcast. If you haven't listened to episodes 115, 175, 146, 275, 371, and episode 558 with the one and only Kevin DeLory and Kenny Phillips, where I invited a good friend of the Culture Matters podcast, a repeat guest over the years, Jason Frazier, broker, CMO, friend, to talk about our friend, someone very important to not only the Culture Matters podcast and Culture Matters and the whole industry, Kevin DeLory, father, husband, friend, eccentric. So Jason Frazier, thanks for coming on the Culture Matters podcast to pay tribute to our friend, Kevin DeLory. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. My pleasure, man.
You remember the first time you met him?
Oh yeah, yeah. Look, let me put it this way: if you never forget the first time that you meet Kevin, right? Like he's not one that is quiet or is unforgettable. He's a memorable, was a memorable. It's gonna be hard for me to talk to him in the past tense, but like, so I'll go back and forth on that. But he's a memorable guy. I remember the restaurant. Remember the first time I shook his hand. First time that I met him, talked to him, and uh and he's an unforgettable guy, right? He just is.
What was the restaurant?
I don't remember the name. I remember the place. I don't remember the name of the restaurant. Yeah, names I don't remember, but I could draw a visual picture of
Wow.
it, where he was standing, the suit he was wearing, right? Because
Wow.
he's all about suits, right? And we met. This was when we were looking to bring the team on to EPM. So
Yeah.
Eddie, myself, Jason Callan went up to Rhode Island to meet with him, and we hung out and got to know them, and speaking of culture, just to see if they would be a good fit for what we were building at EPM.
What was the energy like?
The energy was good, right? Like Kevin, like it's all like, if you do Kevin and like his team, because his team was there too, Kenny and other guys, and um, it was fun. Like it was just a fun dinner, a lot of laughing, a lot of telling stories. Like even though like we weren't a part of their culture, right? Because we were just meeting them. But it wasn't like there was no lull in the conversation, no awkward silence. There was no like, Kevin carried the conversation. It was a great team, and the first thing that I noticed
Wow.
really was just how close his team was, right? As close all of those guys, and you expect that when they guys work together for a long time. But just the humor, like I laughed hard, right? Like we all did. Like it was a funny dinner, and you could tell. And I said this, when I posted about Kevin when he passed, um, and you could tell that like Kevin loved his people, like Kevin loved his people, like, and not just like, hey, I'm a leader and like these are my people, but like you could tell like these were his guys, right? Like these were his people, and you could feel that the same with them, right? Like like there was just it was a good solid close, and you don't get that a lot in the mortgage industry, honestly. I mean, you get like good like pockets of people here and there, but it was a very solid, close knit group. And Kevin, again, just a funny guy, and it was just he had a flow to his talks, right? Like it's like you probably could probably drop. It's kind of like Frank Franz, right? Like you could drop
Yeah, love
Kevin
Frank.
and Frank anywhere, and they're gonna be fine, right? Like you could drop them in any situation, any scenario, and they're gonna be fine, right? And so and Kevin, again, just it was our first time meeting. I think we called him like the mortgage Joe Pesci, is the kind of like how we referred to him. But like, yeah, just a solid group of people, a solid guy, and and that dinner was good. It was good because it's one thing to like meet with someone like when you're talking about like working together or whatever, and you meet them in whatever environment, and it's like it's business. But it was good just to see like it wasn't like you wouldn't really know it was like a business like type of situation. It was more of just like people just having fun, right? Like getting to know people.
Hmm. Yeah, in your breadth of experience in the industry, working in this capacity, working with so many different
Hmm.
players in the space, what would you say? And you have that, you have Arte hat right on. I mean, that's a culture.
Yep.
What what would you say builds that? What was it about him that creates that type of atmosphere?
I think, what's what is it? Chutzpah, right? Is that a way to say it?
Yeah, chutzpah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those it's a I guess magnetism is a way to say it, but like there's certain people, right? There's just certain people in the world and in the industry that has that ability to attract, right? And ability to it's natural. Like Eddie, like for example, Eddie has it, right? And you it's it when you see it. It's like porn, right? You know it when you see it, and what creates it is it's transparency, right? Trust. It's leading by example. Up to that point, obviously, I didn't know Kevin, or so I couldn't really explain what that was, but I saw it over time. But ultimately, Kevin was not about like complaining or whining or what he didn't have. It was about like what he did have. And if there was a challenge, let's look for solutions. How do we solve the problems? Right. And that catches on, right? When you're leading by example to, which is probably like an overdone phrase, but it's true. Is what creates that culture, in my opinion, is that ability to look at situations and not be like stupidly negative about, because it's a mortgage industry. You get a lot of people that are negative, complaining this or that, worrying about things they can't control, as opposed to really just trying to like, how do we get together and solve the damn problem, right? Like how do we get better, and how do we do things differently? Out of like, I've been in this industry for a long time. I've met mortgage executives from some of the top you know organizations in the country, executives at different areas, levels of this industry. And Kevin was different, right? Kevin was one that you remembered. Kevin was one that led. Kevin wasn't one that was gonna like sit behind his desk with his feet up just waiting for shit to happen. He was gonna make it happen, and he was
Hmm.
gonna will it to happen. And I had great respect for him in that regard. I had great respect um for his dedication to the channel of brokers. He loved brokers. He loved helping them. He loved to help them solve problems and do more business. And I could tell that was like a great attractor for us. Is what we wanted, as we wanted to grow wholesale and build wholesales, to have someone that was that so dedicated to the broker. And you saw it, right? And you saw it, the brokers and how they responded to him, and do business because of him. And that's what you want in a company, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all commodity. It's all commodity. Like what we did at EPM wasn't, as far as like having the products and services and stuff like that, wasn't different than anyone else. So what's really going to bring people to you is partly the relationships, the connection, the culture of the organization. Do they like to work with them? Do they stand behind what they do? Or are they going to try to problem solve? And Kevin, it would be, I think Eddie posted that, but like, you could give Matt Ishby a credit for, for him doubling down, tripling down on everything broker. But, I put Kevin in that same, in that same area of advocacy and dedication to seeing the wholesale channel grow.
Love, honor, and respect is Kevin lived by.
Mhm.
What's an example of love that you could think of? You did mention love in that.
Yeah, I mean, his people. Look, from what obviously he cared about his family, right? He talked about that. I mean, that was like one of the first. He talked, about his daughter and his wife, when we met and whatnot, and the the relationship he had with Kenny, right? Like, Kenny, another great professional in this industry and advocate and leader um, and you saw that, right? You saw the friendship. You saw that. You knew it, right? You didn't have to. It's one of those things you just see, right? You see and you experience, and it's like that. There's a friendship there. There's a love there, and respect, and it's like it's what I have with like my closest friends and people, and so you see it in others, and that's what I saw in him, right? Like I saw like and it was an emotion, right? Like he put his emotion, he put everything he had into those things that he cared about. And it was great, to see and be around.
Why do you think that's important? From put your advisor hat on, right? You're constantly speaking and pouring into those in the industry. Would you say that's something important, or do you have another view of
Oh
it?
no, no, I think it's important because, and it's funny, I just did a growth note on this, is that the 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 facts, right? Like facts and data, like nobody remembers that. They remember the emotion, right? It goes into like that, the cliche of like people, will remember how you made them feel, but it's true. Emotion is memory. And so like you're going to get an emotion, maybe it's not a good emotion all the time, right? But you're going to get an emotion from dealing with Kevin, right? And and again, I'm not saying that, of a negative standpoint, but you know what I mean? Just like like with me, like you're not always like not everyone likes me, right? Like Phil Mancuso, like you're gonna get an emotion from talking with Phil one way or another, right? Like either you love him or you don't, right? And so so that's a piece of that. And
Mm,
so that like Phil is going like there's never going to be a time that I'm not going to remember Phil. You know what I mean? Like no one's never going to have to remind me of Phil. And and same with Kevin, right? Like that's not
wow.
someone you forget, and that's because there's emotion tied to that, right? There's not a rinse and repeat robotic going through the motions piece of how they approach the business, and there's emotion involved with that, and it's important because emotion is memorable. Emotion drives action, and not emotion that is from a leadership perspective, an emotion that you get from being led, right? And that's why like you hear players when they talk about a coach or something, they say like I'll run through walls for that guy, right? They don't do it because they're great at what they do and because the data or facts support that. They do it because there's an emotional connection, right? Going above and beyond isn't factual or logical, it's emotional, right? And so that's why I view it as a definitely like a value add or an important piece of leadership.
What about in times like this, in the last year, like when an industry um, is in a season of change? How do you think it impacts
Oh,
a team?
absolutely, because the human condition is going to be the opposite. Is they're going to be complain, to whine, to vent, to look at the bad stuff, to look at what you don't have as opposed to what you do have.
Mm,
And it's interesting enough. So like when I created like a tribute to Kevin on my growth notes, and I took some audio from some of the videos that were out there from what he was talking about. And the reason why you want that emotion is because like Kevin was like, hey, good, rates are high, we'll grow. Rates are low, we'll grow, right? Everything was like a grow. That's what you want to be around, right? You want to be around someone that's going to like, hey, we're going to find a way through this. We're going to win. We're going to figure it out. We're going to go through. We're going to do that because Who wants to be around people that, are talking about like the sky is going to fall or this is bad or this sucks or this is a negative or this is why I can't do all that stuff? Because who cares? Because that's the easy route to do. That's the easy shit, is to say I can't do something or this is hard or whatever. The hard stuff is to look for a way through that. And then and then even harder is to lead people whose chemical response, because that's what the human brain wants, is they want comfort, it wants easy, it wants all of that, is to drag them through that and to achieve, right? And so, a true mark of a leadership of emotion when those people are geared up and rallied up just to go as hard as that person is. And that, again, that doesn't come from logic, it comes from emotion. And so, more importantly, that because you want someone that wasn't going to give over emotional about the market. Eddie's been another great example of that. He's not losing his mind. Phil, same way no one's like running around with their chicken, with their head cut off because rates do this or that or the market does that. Ultimately, it's like, what am I going to do? I can't control any of that shit. What am I going to do to be better? What am I going to do to get past this? What am I going to do to grow? What am I going to do to win? Right. And those are the only questions that need to be answered in a time like this, and honestly, anyone else that and that's why you had so many failures. And I'm not talking about like people, like just like, I'm not talking about like losers. I'm talking about like you had so many like companies that went out of business, so many loan officers that left the industry, that just quit and whatever, because they can't take the hard. They couldn't choose what their hard path was going to be. They took the easy way out. It was easy to quit. It was easy to do that stuff. It was easy to blame rates or the market or anything else. You need someone that's calm, cool, and collective, that uses logic, uses the emotion to drive that, to create action and to see a company through, right? EPM obviously didn't slouch around during the market. Like, they've grown.
exponentially.
Yeah.
What would you say something that you learned from Kevin?
I think if I look at all the, because, Kevin and I didn't work that long together, when he came over, but, and obviously he wasn't in the office all the time. So it wasn't like I was like around him 24/7 and whatnot. But the interactions, what I learned from Kevin is that you have to be direct, good or bad, right? Like, you have to be direct in what you're talking about, and you have to be the willingness to have that conversation, right? Like Eddie calls, like, the embracing the conflict piece of it, right? That Eddie talks about quite a bit, and Eddie will tell you like that was probably I was one of the biggest holdouts on that because of how I view conflict, right? And so with Kevin, and I put this in my post, like Kevin and I always didn't see eye to eye. We don't always agree on that. But what I learned is that I could always trust Kevin to be direct with what he was doing, and direct with where he was going, and direct with what he wanted, and direct with how he was going to serve, right? And so what I learned from Kevin is that you always have to be direct, but you also always have to be like, you always have to listen, right? You always have to listen to the other person. You may not agree with them, but you have to listen and have that conversation, because that's the only way forward. It's the only
Mm.
way forward, is to have that conversation, good or bad, right?
Why?
Which part?
Why is it the only way forward?
Because if you don't have the conversation, you're just going to stand still, right? You can't progress without having the conversation, right? And this is just as much to do with yourself too, right? As a coach, like, you got to have uncomfortable conversations, but you have to have uncomfortable conversations with yourself in the mirror, right? But when you're in a team environment, um, your job when you're running an organization or an executive in an organization is to grow, period. And there is no other route, right? There just isn't. There isn't. I mean, there, of course, you could go backwards if you wanted to, but that's not business, right? Your business is to grow, business is to win. And if you want to move forward and you want to progress, you have to have all the conversations, and you have to be direct. There is no place for, it doesn't mean you have to be like rude or mean about it. The point is that you just have to be direct. You have to be able to accept it. But more importantly, you got to be willing to have to listen, to have that conversation. Because if you don't, then what happens is you don't come to an understanding. And if there's not an understanding, that means no one's on the same page. And that means you have someone rowing backwards and someone rowing forwards. And when you do that, you go in a, you go, what happens, right? If you go forward, I go backwards, we're going in a circle, right? And so the only way to go forward is to come to an understanding and and move towards that direction. And the only way to have that is to have that conversation.
How would you say, because honor, how how did how would you describe honor when it came to Kevin?
I would say, we had we had like, we had our like our executive like offsite meetings, and whatnot. And I think,
Wow, we're going back. This
yeah,
is
yeah, let's
like
just go.
this is it's not really hitting me until it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while, right? So it
Like
goes quick. It goes
so
quick
many
though.
years,
Yeah.
life goes, yeah, it's like, how are we having this conversation right now?
Yeah, yeah, it's quick, man. It goes quick. And
Wow.
so having our executive
Wow.
offsites like we used to, right, when I was at EPM. And I would say, from, you know, and it really depends. Everyone defines honor a different way, right? Like to me, when I think of honor, I think of respect, right? And
Yeah, that's the other one.
yeah.
Respect.
So I think, but I can, to me, like I said, I think everyone has their own definition of honor. Um, it could be as like how someone holds themselves accountable. It could be how they take responsibility for their actions. It could be, are they dependable, trustworthy? Do they say what they're going to do? I put honor and respect as kind of the same thing. And what I looked at as far as honor is like when Kevin came, and like I mentioned in the beginning, like you don't forget Kevin. Kevin's bigger than life, big voice, big personality, big big ideas, um, confidence, and he could have easily came into our situation and been like a bull in a china shop, right? And I think what I saw in our executive offsites
Hmm.
was him working to honor our culture and what we had built because it wasn't the same, right? What Kevin had and what we had is different, right? Because Kevin had a close knit office all working together for years, and that's not like just how we were built. And so we had our culture, we had our way of doing things, and so what I Kevin could have easily came in there as kind of like the hot shot, running wholesale, a big personality guy, and just kind of like tried to reshape everything in the way that he thought it needed to be done. And not he didn't, right? There was no like telling. It was everything. It goes back to what I was saying. Everything was a conversation, and I think he did. He focused or put a premium. Him and Kenny put a premium on honoring what Eddie and the team had built at EPM and where we were trying to go, and what could he do to add to that as opposed to because sometimes when you bring I've been a part of a lot of mergers and acquisitions, a lot of hiring teams, remote, in house, whatever, and especially when you come in with like a from a different company, a whole team, like cultures collide, right? Like different ways of doing things collide. And it could have easily been the opposite, right? And so what I saw was someone that wanted to figure out like how do I add to this to empower it, if you will, to the mission and vision of what Eddie wanted, which was to build just a great organization and to be the best that we could be.
What would Kevin tell us to do for the remainder of 2025? I believe we have about 73% left.
30, I think 36 weeks. I think it's 36 weeks or so, 37 weeks is what we have left in that. I, again, I would say that from the time that I was there, and then obviously the interactions that I had since I left EPM, but I think what he would say to anyone is is uh, is to not let that light dim, right? And that's like part of what I talked about, and when I posted about him and the growth notes was the way that I could honor Kevin outside of having him live with his own words on my podcast and in his voice, so that anyone could always ever listen to like Kevin's wisdom and what he wanted to talk about. But to keep that voice and energy for the broker channel there, right? And what he learned, after he got cancer and how he approached things and how he, how he looked at business and whatnot. I would say that what he would tell brokers, maybe not us, but what he would tell brokers, because I would say, even though Kevin was a leader in the organization, and even though that he had people underneath him and whatnot, I would say that what he would tell is that, brokers, don't like you are in the best position to win. So don't worry about what happened to him. Don't worry about what's going on in the market. And again, I go back to that, that little, audio snippet that I used on my growth notes is that like, no matter grow, just grow, right? Just do what, do what you're going to do. And, not to put words in his mouth, but I think with, and when you get cancer and you go through what he went through, I think it's something that you have a little more a different perspective and appreciation for life and the time that you have. And so I think he would want everyone to to want them to live and understand that tomorrow is not promised, and we always think we have more time, and we just don't. But do what you're do your thing every single day, get better, don't make excuses. You all have a great opportunity to grow. And so go out there and do it and take action, because ultimately, what else are you going to do? Right? What value of is it to do anything less? Why would you? I mean, this doesn't make any sense. So I think he would want you to, he'd want all of us to not make excuses for where we're at, accept where we're at, and go forward and try to be the best that we can.
Jay, what's that hat mean to you?
Well, arate means excellence, right? And for me, what it means to me is not being excellent, but striving for excellence. Because to me, perfect is the enemy of done. Perfect and perfection is the enemy of results. Because when you wait for perfection, like you're gonna end up waiting for things to happen that are under your control. But arate means it means striving for excellence, to be best or to be the best version of yourself. And so that's why I'm a part of arate. And it's why I love being a part of the community. And it's also to the kind of the theme of what we talked about being direct is that, right? Like when you get coached by Andy Frisella and Ed Milet, there is no patting you on the back and, oh, it's okay, try harder next time. It's like, what needs to be done. There's no more excuses for why you're not getting stuff done. And it's always a valid reason for you not to do something. But either you want to strive for excellence or you don't. It's a very binary decision. And look, there's no judgment. If you don't want to be that, then be whatever you want to be that makes you happy. I want to be the best at what I do. I want to be known for being the best at what I do. And so Arte is, being a part of that group, and the symbol of excellence is a manifestation of that.
Well, I thank you for sharing that. On our listeners know, I challenge everyone listening, go check out episodes 115, 146, 175, 275, 371, and 558 of the Culture Matters podcast, because these are very different conversations, exuding excellence. And Jay, thanks for taking the time to talk
Yeah,
and
my pleasure, man.
share about our friend, the one and only Kevin DeLory, who lives on,
Yeah.
just like whoever made, I think, was it the Romans that, Arte, that's like 2000 years old.
Yeah.
We can translate love, honor, and respect, excellence. So if you're listening to this, please share this with somebody you care about. And please leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast. Jay, where can people listen to that growth note on Kevin's um,
Oh
DeLory?
yes. So my episode for let me pull that up real quick. Should have had this already. So Kevin's episode um, was episode 116 on growth notes. You go to growthtext.com or just look up growth notes on your podcast. You'll see it. It's a daily podcast that I do. It was episode 116 where we honored Kevin's legacy of passion, integrity, and impact. And I think that probably left not that was to me like, and I may not have used that word, but what I want everyone to take away is that his passion for what he did and his people and the channel was unmatched. And out of all the things that I appreciated and respected Kevin for, that was at the top of the list. Was his passion for that. And so that's episode 116 on Growth Notes, and you can go to growthtext.com and listen to it.
If you're listening, get over there. Please share this with a friend, and we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Thanks, Jay.
My pleasure, Brad.